Welcome to the MMHP and the 989. Podcasting from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame in downtown Bay City. Channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. From the city by the bay. And now, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker.
We're back here for part 2 with Mr. Andy Cohen and Andrew Rogers and the MMHP and the 989. We're so grateful for them to stop by and not just get a reunion hang here with us, but have Andy Cohen give us a backstory on so much of the history that he continues to bring forward to this day in the folk music world that he took straight out of Michigan from their earliest days in the late 60s. As they spoke earlier, they are recording a record that they haven't finished. They started years ago with Reed Recording here in town, and we are grateful to hear them just play, talk, and carry on conversation like normal friends around a campfire. It's been one heck of a great podcast for us, and if you recall, the very next day they played at the Dunlop Showroom, which is across the block here from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, and it was a heck of a turnout on a wonderful evening. It was our first show, and as it came to be, it was quite the reunion just to witness it here in Bay City, Michigan. And without further ado, here comes some more songs, more backstory, and some Michigan folk history at its finest with Andy Cohen and Andrew Rogers, part 2 of 2.
Well, you're still traveling pretty much all over, aren't you?
All over, yeah. Traveling, teaching as fast as I can.
Do you still live in Memphis?
I still live in Memphis. Come visit me.
Is it the same house that Lazy Lester and I came to that time?
Yeah, you came down there one time. Yeah. When
'Cause we played
you
the
and
Beale
Lester
Street.
visited, yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing missing is Larkin,
Right.
and I'm doing my best to carry on like she's still there, you know. And so far, so good. And like the man said that fell off the Empire State Building as he passed the 45th floor, so far, so good.
Yeah, at that festival, that's where I got to meet Ike Turner. And he was shorter than I am, and I'm 5'5".
Wow.
I couldn't believe it when he came up, and I couldn't believe he was that small.
Ike Turner?
Ike Turner.
Wow.
So Tina Turner must have been pretty short. But she was shorter than him, I think.
Well, he might have been taller when he was younger.
That's true. So was I.
Sometimes people get shorter because of a scoliosis or something, you know.
I recall seeing Tina Turner, and I don't believe she was short, but that was 50 years ago.
Yeah. Well, Andy, take us into some of your records, some of your recordings. Now, your name has come up numerous times amongst folkies on our podcast through this 2.5, almost 3 years we've been together doing this show. Then I was backtracking, and I don't remember who brought the first copy, but it was Detroit Folk Volume 1.
Folk scene.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And remember we passed that around? Somebody found, Jordan at the kitchen made a digital copy for us,
Right.
and I was able to share it with everybody so we could hear this. And you were all over that record.
Which one?
Detroit Folk Scene
Oh, the
Volume 1.
Detroit folk scene, yeah.
And it's
Oh my God.
super collective.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That's a very collectible album.
Yeah. I actually almost won one on eBay just recently. And
Oh,
I got
really?
No kidding.
And for years I had the tapes, the master tapes for that in my
kidding.
library, and I gave them to Cohen about 10 years ago.
So they're out there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, I just was curious. What was your first recording? Was that one of
was
them?
it.
That was it. Okay.
That was it. And
Short and bread.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Short and Bread and this silly love song that I'd written for somebody, and I think I played piano behind Mark Chover on Statesboro Blues or something. I played something on something. I played piano on it.
Studio down in Monroe, Michigan.
And yeah,
Yeah, you took me.
he
there.
worked at the nuke plant.
Oh.
That's what I remember about him. He worked at the nuke plant. I was always worried he was going to radiate on me.
Who was the other guy that's on that a lot? There's a guy that's on there quite
Well,
a bit.
Jim Perkins was he on there too?
Not Jim
Ted
Perkins.
Lucas.
Ted Lucas. That's
yes.
Ted Lucas and your names are probably the biggest two.
Well, there's also
Names that
Ron
we've
Cohen.
Oh yeah.
And Charlie
Bowles?
Who was that guy?
Charlie
Great
Bowles.
big guy. Great big guy. There were kind of two, just like everywhere else, there's kind of like two lobes of what people called folk music, and one was a little more commercial and songwriter oriented, and the other was kind of more rural-esque and blues and old-time music oriented. The same kind of division we have today, between the committed songwriters and the committed
Copyists.
old farts.
Yeah. Right. Where did Ted Lucas fall?
Pardon?
Where did Ted Lucas fall?
He was a writer and a great musician, and a sort of a spiritual guru of the Detroit folk scene.
Mm-hmm.
He was highly respected. Guitar player of great skill. He did a lot of studio work, and he led bands. He passed away, I don't know what got him, but he passed away, I think, in the 80s or 90s. Most of them are gone. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Was this during the Chessmate and Raven days?
He played the Raven Gallery, and so did Ron Cohen. And let's see, Maury ran the Chessmate.
Right.
Yep.
He paid me in dollar bills when we played there.
No kidding.
Singles.
Yeah, we played there for 2 nights.
No kidding.
And he paid me, and I'm going, oh my God. Because that was the cover charge, whatever the cover charge was, and he paid in dollar bills.
Well, one thing that happened was when Loring Janes and Sue Mosher decided to tie the knot, they asked Reverend Gary Davis to marry them. So in order to deal with that, we had to find them some gigs. I went to Maury, the guy that ran the Chessmate, and I said, Reverend Gary's coming out to marry Loring and Sue. Why don't you hire him? And he hired him for 2 weeks. And then people started calling Loring and Sue up and saying, we hear you, Gary Davis is staying at your house. Send him over. We ended up taking him to Lansing. We took him to the Gibson plant. He wanted to talk to him at the Gibson plant. He wanted a J200 that was 8 inches thick, so it would sound like a jug.
Wow.
And he ended up playing, I think he played in, somebody took him up to Traverse City. He ended up staying at Loring and Sue's for about a month. And people would come to the house. Dave Siglin and Michael Cooney and Linda Siglin all came to see him. I imagine he ended up playing at the Ark after that.
Those were the Detroit years.
Hmm?
Those were the Detroit years, right? 67, 68.
Yeah. We when we posted something or somebody come across that, they got a lot of hits, and I think I reached out to you at that point, but I still didn't hear back from you till this year. But I was just curious about your thoughts on that record, and that was your first recordings, you're saying?
Yeah. As far as I can remember, yeah, it's the first time I ever went into a recording.
Who put that out?
Was that?
Who put it out? I can't remember.
I can't remember the
label.
guy's name, but he called the name of his record label was Custer's Last Band.
Yeah,
That's right.
That was
That's
the name
right.
of the studio too.
Yeah.
Oh.
I wish I could remember his name.
And there was never a volume 2, correct?
There was never.
Never a volume 2, correct?
No. As far as I know.
Okay.
And, you know, it's kind of totally caprice and chance that I even got to be on it in the first place.
How? Tell us how that worked.
I don't remember. It was more than 50 years ago.
Okay.
I forget what the circumstances were. But I think one of my people in the social circle knew somebody in his social circle, and I got recommended, and so I went down there. You know, I mean, them was the days when I was really scratching. Not scratching quite so much today, but I remain humble in the face of those conditions. You know,
Yeah.
I really couldn't find a job.
When was your first proper release?
Proper release?
Yeah, for yourself.
The first proper release is called Shuffle Rag. 1979. I did it with my friend Joe LaRose. Do you know Winder Slide by any chance?
I know I've heard it, but I haven't heard it.
Well, Joe wrote it. Joe made it up. It's a real pretty tune. The guy that I recorded, I had a band there. We called ourselves various things, but it was Sue Truman on fiddle, Joe LaRose on guitar and mandolin, Gary Hawk on harmonica and banjo, and then I would play guitar.
I met all those people in Kent. Those are all
Yeah.
your Kent.
Is that the band that was on our front porch when I played with you? I remember Gary Hawks was in it.
Yeah. Gary Hawk, he passed away a
That's
number
what
of
I
years
heard.
ago. He got early onset prostate cancer. Didn't know he had it. So he was like 56.
Oh.
We we played funky old 78s, you know. This is, if you want to pick this up, this is,
I know it.
it's called Winder Slide. This is this tune that Joe wrote. And what he did was he was recording some fiddle tunes for a friend of his that collected 78s. So he left the needle in the runout groove. So it was going, and he started playing the fiddle. Winder Slide
Yeah.
by Joe LaRose.
That was on that 1979 album.
Yep, that's on that album.
What label was that on?
That was on Green Linnet.
Oh, yeah.
And I have copies of that now. I'll give you one. You know,
Tuxedo
I got them out in the
Blues.
car.
Tuxedo
So
Blues,
Tuxedo
yeah,
Blues
that's
was
the
a good
one I
one?
have.
Which
too.
one?
Tuxedo Blues.
Tuxedo Blues, yes. Some
Another, with Joe LaRose.
I made 3 records with Joe and those guys. We made Shuffle Rag, and then later we made Tuxedo Blues. And then Joe and I got a chance. We were playing over at Fredonia, New York, playing the coffee house there, the Unicorn. And some kid comes in and said, "You know, you guys are pretty good. I'm in the sound curriculum, and I need to do a project. You want to be my project?" And we said, "Sure," you know. So we, we made arrangements to come back. We come back for a week. We stayed with our friends in Fredonia, and we recorded. The first thing that happened was that the guy who ran the program said, "Kid, I'm going to give you an A, but I'm going to record these guys."
He took over.
He took it over. Yeah, he says, "You got your A for finding them." So, and we did a little bit of experimentation. It was the first time we got to record in a studio where the engineer really knew what he was doing. He was the main teacher for the sound curriculum, and
What school?
SUNY Fredonia.
Okay.
And they had a grand piano there, so I got to play. I got to play on the grand piano, and we got to do overtracking and all kinds of stuff. So then 50 years later, I was able to bring it out.
Wow.
I sat with the pancake, 1/4 inch mixed
Reel.
down of a 10-inch reel.
Yeah.
For 50 years
Oh.
before I was able to bring it out.
They had no way of releasing it, but they gave you the masters,
Yeah,
right? And they were just. And how did it?
Sounds great.
When you got done, you're like,
I got
"The
that
guy-
one. I got that one out in the car too.
He did a fantastic job, the teacher. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's cool. What a story.
Let's see. How long have you been wasting your time here?
Is this a song of yours?
Yeah.
No. As long as you want to go. I wanted to touch upon your releases.
Okay.
I wanted to talk about what you've put out. And in the
I've put out.
obviously you've been through a few other.
I have. I think I have 20 full-size projects altogether over the years.
Did you have one on Earwig? Earwig?
I got a bunch of them on Earwig.
Oh, yeah, that's what I thought.
And I got a bunch of them on Riverlark. And I have one on Wee Peckett. I made a record with Ragtime Jack Radcliffe. We did some double piano things. And,
Yep, got that.
Let me see if I can name
Hot
them all.
Dogs on Down.
Yeah, Hot Dogs on Down. That's the one I was just talking about.
Okay.
With Larkin, I made one that covered Memphis area blues. It was called Mississippi Heavy Water Blues. And we dressed up like Memphis Minnie and Kansas Joe and had our picture took. And there's a famous picture with Kansas Joe playing the guitar and looking very dyspeptic.
Do you know David Evans down in?
Do I? Of course I know David Evans.
I figured you did.
Oh, yeah. David Evans' wife, Maurice, is married David married him. David is a blues scholar,
Right.
originally from Massachusetts, like me. Yeah, he's from
I didn't know that.
Falmouth or something. But he went to Harvard, where he majored in classics. And after being the valedictory speaker at Harvard and greeting the assembled in Latin, which he wrote himself, then he went to UCLA to major in folklore. So he's in UCLA with John Fahey and Dr. Demento.
Oh, what a mix.
And right, and then him and his girlfriend, who was also a folklore student, they went to Mississippi, and they were the first people to find the first outsiders to really work the blues networks and find people like
Jesse May Hempfield.
Junior
Kimbrough.
Junior Kimbrough and R.L.
Burnside.
Yeah,
Paul
R.L.
Warren Jones.
Burnside. He worked a lot with people in Tate and Panola counties,
Like
which
Fat
are the
Possum
most
Records
isolated
guys.
counties. That's where the Hemphill people live. He put out some of the, really most African-sounding stuff
On high water.
out of
I think
Mississippi.
Huh.
And he
So that was
wrote-
pre-Fat Possum.
His doctoral dissertation was about a song called Big Road Blues, which is credited to Tommy Johnson. David tracked down, sort of OCD, he tracked down 750 versions of Big Road Blues.
Holy crap.
750 different versions, wrote them down from tapes. One of them was Jim Brewer's.
Huh.
Jim put his version on the Philo record. He used to talk about it. He had a way of getting the strings to slap. He said, go down the road with a flat tire. Like so. I ain't going down that big road by myself. Yeah, I'm talking to your pretty mama. Oh, big road by myself. I can't carry you, take somebody else. Now the sun gonna shine in my back door, so oh, lonesome day, sun's gonna shine my back door someday. Well, the wind's gonna come, blow my blues away. Now the smokestack lightning gonna ring like silver, gonna shine like gold. Pretty mama, gonna ring like gold. Going down the road now, got a flat tire. in the evening breeze. Come take a walk in the evening, in the evening breeze. See the moon shining through the leaves in the trees. Now I ain't going down that big road by myself. Big road by myself. If I can't carry you, take somebody else. Ray! That's Dave Evans' contribution. All 750 versions of it.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Even Bromberg just recorded that a couple of years ago.
Who did?
David Bromberg.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I'm not surprised.
That's
Yeah, I met David Evans when he was with Jesse May Hempfield.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Were they
Yeah,
were
he-
they married? Do you know?
No, they're not married. He was.
Okay.
I don't know if he was going with Jesse May.
Okay,
Uh,
because it
but-
sounded like he was, but
No, they were friends.
okay.
But Jesse May Hemphill is Sid Hemphill's niece, granddaughter. And Sid Hemphill was collected by Alan Lomax way back in the 30s. And the people from all over that area have been folkloric subjects for the Library of Congress for 100 years now. And David is among the most significant of the collectors.
You're talking about your records, though, on our way to the subject. What was the first time the two of you recorded together, both Andys? Is there a bootleg of some sort that you've got, or is there something from back in the day, or what was the first recording you guys got together on?
we did play at Custer's Last Band once. But I don't think anything ever came.
We tried to make a recording, but then he didn't like it. So
Oh, well, this was 2016. But later, Andy came to Bay City, and we checked out Tall Ships, and we went over to Andy Reid's studio, and
That was my next part of
so
that.
that was really
because
music of the Andes.
Okay, that was the start of it then.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
but
was
you
back
guys have
in
known each other.
2016.
Yeah, that was the start of it, but like the intro of it was me kvetching at him for 10 years,
yeah.
saying, when are you going to make a record?
And I always told them that when we get enough material, written that would make it interesting for people to listen, and I would do it. We started doing a bunch of fiddle tunes, and I've got it all in the can. There were a number of fiddle tunes that I recorded with him backing me, and I told Andy, though, we've got to do some of your stuff that we used to play back in the 70s and try some of that. Well, in the last 50 years, he's recorded most of the things already that we used to play together, so it's kind of tough. So maybe the solution is to find new old material to make it worth listening.
So the record that you did begin with Andy Reid, when the three Andys met, is still going to be in the works then?
It's still in the
sense,
works, yeah.
okay.
And Andy Cohen has told me that he can now do the recording himself, or he can arrange
Send
to
it
do
to
down
him.
in Memphis. So might go down to Memphis and finish it there.
Yeah,
Okay.
if he comes down to Memphis, I have a very good friend named Matt Isbell, and he runs the Ghost Town Blues Band, and he makes bottlenecks that he sells at his gigs, and he's a real good engineer, and he's recorded 4 whole projects for me in my living room. My living room got great sound.
That's awesome.
If you ever want to do a washboard record, you all come down.
To be continued. and it's likely that we could put a couple other musicians on there too. Start out with the two of us, and then maybe figure out a way to incorporate some of our other friends.
Ooh,
That might be it's a possibility.
all
I
right.
got a couple things I can share with you from that 2016 session.
Yeah.
I'll look at it again and see if there's some that are.
Revisiting our former podcast with you, where I got this knowledge as well as the photography that you've used to promote this show that he's playing tomorrow, and shared with me in the past. Did you guys record anything together in Ann Arbor back in the day, or is there any?
No, we never
is
had
there any
a
old
chance to.
Never
other
did.
than that photo of you guys? What do we have? Nothing in the can at all from back then?
Not really. He was always. I was still in college, and he was on the road. We played gigs around Michigan. I know I played in Fenton with him a few times. Played in Detroit. The two of us bombarded Chessmate and played with Courtney Siegel a few times and Sam Lay's blues band.
Yes.
And they got us both up on stage. There's a time when we played at Canterbury House in Ann Arbor and Little Feet's first tour, and we met all the members of Little Feet and played the end of their last set with them. And
Wow.
that was a treat.
Where is the recording of that?
I'd like to know. I'd like to know where those recordings are because that was really exciting to play with them. There was a brand new band, and they'd come to Ann Arbor on their first tour, and Canterbury House was about 3/4 full, and we get up and got in and play with them, not knowing what would happen to this band in future years. And look what little old George did with
Yeah.
that band.
Yeah. Did you know that they were, or Lowell at least, was from Zappa's band? And
Yes.
you see,
Oh,
you
yeah.
had
Oh, yeah.
you knew
We-
what was going on.
I don't think I knew at the time. I met Roy Estrada and Bill Payne and,
Yeah.
Lowell George, of course, and Noftelin. What's that his name? And we met them and shook hands with them and got to play with them. But it was later that I found out that they had recently looked up the history of the band, and they had recently just left Frank Zappa's organization.
Yeah. It's not like you had the internet to search it. That's why I was wondering if you guys knew what you were up
Well, I
for.
want to know who these guys were.
Yeah.
Because we had a lot of fun playing with them. And Andy introduced me to a lot of musicians like that. He was my door back then when I was young and in college. He introduced me to a lot of musicians in the Detroit area and the Ann Arbor area. And being connected with the Ark in Ann Arbor, both of us hanging out there, we got to sit in and play with so many great musicians that were coming through Ann Arbor and Detroit.
New Lost City Ramblers.
Yeah.
Those were the days before the big stadiums and the big concert halls. There was a circuit of clubs, and that's where all these musicians played. And they knew where the gigs were, and so Ann Arbor was on the circuit. There was Chicago
Quiet Night.
Quiet Night and the
Mother Blues.
Yep. And in New York there was Saratoga Springs,
Yeah.
Cafe Lena, of course,
Cafe
Boston, Club
Yeah.
47.
Club 47, that later became
Passim.
Passim's, right, that's right.
So that was the circuit, and Andy Cohen was on it, and I got very close, but ended up coming back to Bay City.
What year was the separation from those 60s and 70s shows? What year did you guys finally?
Well, we
Had your
continued
own
playing
way.
off and on, but Andy was still on the road even throughout the 70s, and when he'd come through this area, he had connections in Mount Pleasant, so I'd catch up with him on our front porch. We played, and I'd catch up with him in Ohio, played with him in Kent, and played with him a few times in the 70s, but I was in business by then in Bay City.
Okay.
But we managed to stay connected all these years
Yeah.
with that.
Excellent.
So we get together whenever we can.
When he was playing with the Gilmore Brothers, I used to come up periodically and play
Yep.
with them.
Played with Pat and Sandy McGuinn quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
There was a pretty healthy folk scene here
There
in
was.
Bay City.
Yeah, there was.
George Harroder and Pat and Sandy.
My wife ran a club across the street from the Federal Building, the old cellar, and that was on the circuit for a while. And we had Bob White come up, Andy Cohen came up, Debbie Friedman. You remember
Debbie
her?
Friedman, yeah.
There was the Inside Out.
The Inside Out. Even before that, I don't think
Yeah.
Andy came up to the
I
Inside
don't think
Out.
I came up for the inside.
But the cellar was hot until Well, there's another story there. What happened at the cellar?
Was there a club where the library is now? Seemed like every time I
Yes.
go by there, it
Yes.
seemed like I remember a club.
Wasn't there Sneaky Pete's there?
Sneaky Pete's bar was in there, but I
Yeah.
think they tried to put music in there. Tom Smith tried to put music in there for a while.
I think John and I played there once.
And of course, there was the Ginger Blue in Saginaw, and where all the folk musicians, Chuck and Joni Mitchell played there in the 65,
Ramblin'
60,
Jack.
67. We brought Ramblin' Jack up from Ann Arbor. He was living at the Ark for a few days, and he needed the money. He owed his ex-wife some money, so he got it. So Pat McGuinn lured him up to the Ginger Blue, and
Day's notice or something.
right in the middle of the week, and we quickly put out flyers and got Ramblin' Jack Elliott to play at the Ginger Blue on Hamilton Street.
Just a
For-
little
he got-
dog.
We gave him the whole gate, which amounted to less than $300, and he took it gratefully because that's what
That's what we had. What you
that's
got?
what we had. That's all we
Yeah.
had. And
Wow.
Put on a show.
Those are some
And-
great
and
stories.
that was the folk circuit, and Mr. Cohen here was an essential part of it when he was in Detroit, and always maintained his roots in Michigan because there were gigs here for him, and people remembered him. He could fill the Ark in Ann Arbor, and did several times.
See, when I was young and I started rambling, I realized that one day I was going to be old and I would need a support network, and that a lot of pieces of that support network are going to drop out along the way. So I have very carefully maintained my contacts in like 17 or 18 different states over the course of years.
Beautiful.
And I will die somewhere out on the road. And they can take me and put me in my car and my guitars and just throw me over the cliff. And I'm gone.
I once saw Andy's address book. He had it open. He has the most incredible address book. That's the days before computers. He had names and addresses for all these great musicians and venues, and it was just amazing to look at.
I think I would speak for Gary, who's not here, Dr. J, and say, can he have that for the Hall of Fame here in town? Because
His address
if
book?
you have that address book to display it in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
that would be a treat.
He still uses it, probably.
Yeah.
I actually have it with me.
Oh,
It's
You ever run into a Roy bookbinder?
oh, yeah.
I figured.
Actually, Roy just invited me. He just asked me to play Merlefest.
oh,
So I got
oh
entirely
yeah.
too much money for doing entirely too little work playing Merlefest. It was a great time.
Yeah, we hooked up in Norway, and he traveled with us for a few gigs, and we're still in contact all the time.
He's about as enthusiastic as he ever was.
Oh yeah.
Which reminds me.
Roy was the one, he came out. I think he delivered Reverend Davis to us.
oh my goodness.
This is in the 1974 picture of us sitting on the steps of the Ark. This is the actual poster. After his gig, I grabbed it.
Uh-huh.
And this one,
Wow.
I think is a later, because the price went up to $2. That's $1.50, Andy. I played.
So
I think
for
I-
$2, you've known the Roy
You can see both of
bookbinder
these
a long
guys, yeah.
time.
I know I played this gig with you. This was about the time that the New Lost City Ramblers were there. And I don't remember
I like the quote from Dave Van Ronk. Best finger picker since Danny Kalb.
there you go.
Dave Van Ronk, I absolutely, you probably saw the movie that came out based on his.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So I've had these in storage.
What's
all the time I give them.
Wildflowers Dynamite?
Wow.
You-
Tell them about Wildflowers.
yeah.
Wildflowers was was an organization that I think it was started by Utah Phillips and a bunch of Andy's friends, and it was centered either out of Cafe Lena, New York, or out of
It was out of Saratoga Springs.
Saratoga Springs, and it was almost going to be like a little cooperative, kind of like Earthworks is today with Seth Bernard.
Mhm.
And they were going to have health insurance for musicians, and they were going to share the gigs and spread the love and support each other. They played. The Wildflowers got billed as a unit at the Philadelphia Folk Festival, and all the members got to play. And Rosalie Sorrells was in there. Who else?
John and Tony.
John Roberts and Tony Barron were members of Wildflowers.
Yeah. Kurt Anderson and Alan Stoll. Bob White for a while. Margaret MacArthur. Utah Phillips. Me and my buddy Rat.
Lux.
Al McKinney was the road manager. Bill Vanover, Jack McGann, Patty Nunn.
This is all 1971.
Yeah.
71. And it lasted for a while. And actually,
We had a gig up in Vermont in the middle of 1972, about the middle of autumn. And a club, they paid us with a 15, we got $100 a piece, 15 acts. So we got paid with a $15 $100 checks, and they all bounced.
Oh, jeez.
And that's what broke us up. So, me and my then girlfriend, Iris, who had gone to school with Andy, they were in the same school. She wanted to go to grad school in ed psych. So she came up with two choices. She got accepted at Mankato and Cullowhee. And she said, "Where do you want to go?" I said, "Well, they got snow in Mankato. They got fiddles in Cullowhee. Let's go to Cullowhee." So we did that. We ended up starting a club in Asheville that still has ramifications from when we started it.
North Carolina?
Still has influence.
Yeah.
We were the first people in the city of Asheville who paid anybody anything to play.
That's a good
besides
Asheville.
beer. We were also the first integrated club in Asheville.
What year?
We had,
What year?
this was in 1974, 5-6.
Yeah.
And after in 1977, we went up to Ohio, but the club continued until there are still echoes of it in Asheville today.
What was the name of the club?
It was called Asheville Junction.
Yep.
After a song by Bascom Lamar Lunsford. Asheville Junction, Swan Tunnel, all caved in, baby, all caved in. I'm going back to Swan Tunnel, that's my home, baby, that's my home. Bascom Lamar Lunsford was a famous collector, lawyer, musician, banjo player, folklorist, informant, newspaper publisher, man of many hats.
Yeah.
One of the hats he wore was that he invented the Asheville, was now the Asheville Folk and Dance Folk Festival in 1928 out of a sort of flower show festival. He ended up taking it over, and he had the bright idea to mix the acts up instead of having all the dulcimer players in sequence and all the fiddle players and all the banjo players, because it was a contest. So he just had the judges sitting there all day judging everything. And he was able to, because he was able to mix it up, it became an entertainment as much as it had been a contest.
Wow.
And it's still going almost 100 years.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
And
95 years now. Started in 1928.
Asheville had a big Irish music scene too. Were you part of that too? Did you connect with some of those musicians as well?
The Asheville Folk Festival connected the Greenwich Village scene to the living roots. Okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One time, Roger Sprung, Jack Elliott, and Guy Carawan went down to the Asheville Folk Festival. And Bascom got on stage and he introduced them. He said, "Here's a bunch of Jew boys from New York. They've been listening to our music."
Yep.
Wow. Wow. Something else. So, what's in your back pocket for the next couple years to come, other than
Well,
building that website for your record label?
Well, I'm producing underproduced and under-recorded players that I happen to think are very strong.
How are you coming across those players?
I've been at this for 50 years. I meet people all the time. Let me tell you something. It's not hard to find really good musicians. Not hard at all. I know lots of people who are entirely competent. A lot of them would just as soon play around home and not make a record. The ones who have the heart for it, who like to travel, who want to be social, who want to get their music out, whatever kind it is. The ones that aren't too modest. He's not the only one. Joe LaRose is like that too, and so is my friend Mark Allen back home in Memphis. It took me 5 years to get Mark Allen over to Matt Isbell's house. The conditions were, Mark didn't want to record because he couldn't afford it, so I arranged for a free recording. And then he only wanted to record if it could be fixed up so that he could be inside the guitar while he was recording. So Matt figured out a way to do that. And then he said, "Now I got to do this all by myself." So Mark is a classical and flamenco player. He said, "You guys get lost." We went and got lost for an hour. He sat there with the tape recorder running and played about a dozen pieces, one butting into the next. So
Wow.
they lost the tape for a while, but they finally found it, so I'm going to issue it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You know,
Wow.
I don't think you have to be a genius to deserve to make a record, but you always have to be real good every single time. You know? That's the kind of the Bob Fosse. You never have to be brilliant, but you always have to be good. And I know a lot of people like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
So that's what you have planned for the
That's what I have
coming
planned.
years, and
I'm going to spend the rest of my life. Larkin used to teach dulcimer at all of these different dulcimer festivals. And because all of the dulcimer clubs had a bunch of little old lady empty nesters that would come and learn her dulcimer pieces, she'd go to a big dulcimer festival, and there'd be representatives of a dozen different dulcimer clubs. So she'd hand out the pieces, and then they'd all go Xerox them for all of their friends in their dulcimer club. So she had to make a new set of dulcimer tabs every time. I have 30 linear feet of Larkin's dulcimer tabs that I have to sort and collate into Larkin's dulcimer encyclopedia.
wow.
Because she's got the same tune written out 8 different ways, with harmonies and duets and trios and different tunings, different keys, you know. A million ways to play Soldier Shod.
How often are you going to tour? Do you have a plan every year?
I'm sort of out 6 weeks and in 6 weeks, or in 3
Around the
weeks.
clock.
I'm pretty much continually on the road, and that's okay with me. I got a lot of friends. I do have a problematical dog that lives at home. He's got food aggression. I have a buddy that stays at the house and feeds him and plays with him and knows how to do it without getting bit. You know, but he was Larkin's dog, and I promised, so I'm going to take care of him. You know, he's a good doggy, except when he's not. And we know how to make sure that he isn't a bad dog.
Well, thank you for the years, man, and thank you for the music.
My great pleasure. It's been a life, buddy.
It's
been a real life.
We are looking forward to your show tomorrow.
I'm happy to be able to contribute a little bit to Michigan's folk life.
Oh yeah, you've put it on a national scale, so we are grateful for that. We are grateful for what you brought to the state, and your friendships that you've maintained and retained, and the fact that you coming around and still talking about it and sharing the stories and getting that next connection for the next ride. That's a pretty cool thing.
Well, thank you for having me in. I was really honored that you wanted me.
Andy, thank you for coming too, man. Your backstory and the color is amazing on this. This is probably one of the most fantastic podcasts we've had. And thank you both.
Yeah. Thank you.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP 989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. Don't forget to look for Mr. Mike's local music live series, posted frequently on MMHP's Facebook hub, as well as Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, Mr. Mike at YouTube at Mr. BT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1. Brought to you by Michigan Rock and Roll Legends, located both inside the Bay County Historical Museum on Washington Avenue, as well as Scotty's Sandbar on Evergreen Drive at the Bay City Middle Grounds.
On behalf of our hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, this podcast wouldn't have been here without the voice of the MMHP, Mr. Eddie Switek, the generosity of the Bay County Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame, as well as this podcast, Mr. Alan Garcia,